Hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Hyper Games Conference for inviting me to such a productive event. Let me introduce myself shortly. I'm Enes Kaan Boyar. I'm the co-founder of Hyper Bandit Games. We are developing hyper casual games and trying to catch the next big hit game. Today, I will be giving you some tips on developing a hyper casual game process for my speech. I will be talking about how to make it better and faster. So I will start with understanding the process and hyper-casual gaming industry. Now, the process is about developing a high-quality game in the shortest time period. And let's start with the first question. Why do we have to develop a game in such a short time? First of all, hyper-casual gaming industry is developing so fast. There are lots of game studios and lots of people who may think about the same idea and they can implement and test the idea before you. So even if you have already started developing the game, you can lose the opportunity to be the first studio to test, iterate and launch the game. And another reason is the market trends. As we are chasing to catch people to play our game. And nowadays, people's focus and interests are constantly changing, which means the market trends are also constantly changing. Any concept or any mechanic can go viral, but you don't know how long they can last. So you have to follow the trend before it loses its attention on markets. And never forget that this prototyping process will take place over and over again for each of your new game concepts. So you have to keep it short and create a high quality product in that time period. And now let's answer that why do we have to go through this process again and again? Is because you have an idea. You wrote your detailed game progression on a neat game design document. The team started on developing the game, artists are creating the visuals, developers are coding the mechanics, the game is ready to fly, the creatives are ready to fly, and once the tests are started, boom, you have to kill the game because you can't monetize the game if the results test results don't meet the required KPI metrics. You have to drop the game there and start developing the next one without losing time, because we talked about the importance of time. And the last question of our first slide is, how do we make a high quality game? We are calling it a game, but all the process is about developing a prototype of the game. So as we said that we have to develop it in a very short time period. We don't develop a finalized product. We try and test new mechanics and concepts in this process. And if the if the metrics are promising, we develop the game with new iterations that your game designers and your game manager give you as a feedback. Although, even as a prototype, you have to develop it in high quality. That means least bugs and most attractive visuals, because you need to attract the player to play our game. And you need to develop the game as closely as possible to the game design. The idea might be brilliant, but the application of it also should be brilliant. You have to develop the mechanics as addictive as possible. You have to satisfy the player with your mechanics and visuals. And at that point, never forget to implement the satisfaction elements such as haptics or celebration effects at the end of levels, stuff like that, in your game. So yes, we can say it is just a prototype, but it is the first tool to launch the final game by getting the players' attention to play our game. So that's why it has to be a high quality prototype. And let's get to the next process. And yeah, ideation. Now, we can consider the whole process under three main subjects. And first of all, you need an idea for the new game concept. At this point, how can you get a new idea is you can arrange an ideation meeting with your colleagues and brainstorm for a new game idea. And you should start with market research. What is market research is you search through the market and see what people are testing, trying, and what are some kind of mechanics or concepts that are trending right now. What do people play? What kind of games are on top charts right now? So you should start with your market research first. And there are some tools and websites that you can use for ideation. You can use Sensor Tower to follow the top charts and see which mechanics or concepts are trending at that moment. Maybe you can come up with an idea by mixing a trending mechanic with a trending concept, and you can follow pages like Storyglide or Hyperwatcher on Instagram to see what kind of prototypes are other studios are trying at that moment. And you should also follow TikTok and follow viral or trending videos. You can also find hyper casual game videos on TikTok, just like Storyglide, and by doing that, you might come up with a TikTokable game idea, which is really important for a new game concept. There are also resources on YouTube or any other platform. You can search for more resources to keep yourself updated with market trends. The important thing here is to examine the market well and brainstorm with more people to light the first spark of the idea. Also, whenever you have an idea, even if it's not really detailed yet, always take notes on a notepad or an app on your phone. You can even just text to a friend or a colleague with some little tips that can remind the idea back to you. Because you can easily forget about your idea, so never forget to take notes on them, even if it sounds meaningless at that point. You can bring the keywords to an ideation meeting, and by brainstorming with your colleagues, and who knows, that meaningless keywords may become a hit game one day. And lastly, I can say that if you have a partnership with publishers, always try to work with the one who provides you data about market trends or metrics about mechanics and concepts. That way, you could focus on finding the idea based on real data. And some of the not to do's, as we said, always take notes on somewhere whenever you get an idea. And some not to do's are don't clone. What do I mean by don't clone is don't just clone a game with very minor differences. Always try to come up with an original product. Don't produce a clone game with just minor changes to the concept but without really significant iterations. This will not benefit you or the industry. And maybe this may be the one of the most important things to be careful about is don't get connected to your idea emotionally. It means don't get hyped too much about your idea and make emotional connections with it. Remember the process. Always remember the process. You or the people around you may really love the idea, but even if you really love the idea and implementation of it, always remember that important thing here is the test results. The opinion of the majority is being tested at that point. So always try to trust the results and don't get stuck on the same idea. Always be prepared to kill and drop the project. Otherwise, you'll get stuck with your project and you will lose the chance to make the next big hit game. And next step is improving the game design, which is transform your keywords into a neat, detailed game design document. So you completed the ideation part, you brainstormed with more people, took some notes, and now it is time to add more depth to our game. At this point, game designers, or you if you are a one-man army, starts working on the game design document, also known as the GDD. Let's say you are the game designer You can find templates for this document online, but basically, one of the most important parts of the GDD is the elevator pitch. This elevator pitch is a field that you have to assume that you just ran into someone on an elevator, and you have to explain the game and attract that person with a couple of sentences until you get to the floor, which means you have just around 30 to 45 seconds. And this is the part where you catch the players. So if you are collaborating with a publisher, this will be the part that they would consider first about your idea. Then you should add more depth to the game and think about the player progression, win and fail sequences. Although, don't overthink and add more than enough details. That way, you would start getting away from the main idea and slow down the process. You should also remember about not connecting emotionally to the idea rule at this point too. It's really important and it in any points because it will make you lose your motivation, slow down the process, and just it's really something that you should be careful about. So basically, try to ideate brief ideas at ideation stage and start adding more depth and details at this stage. And yeah, you can simply sketch something with paint or some kind of application to draw what do you think on your mind about that idea. That way the publishing manager can understand your idea better, and when you are brainstorming with other people, you can tell what you think better. You can give that reference to your idea. And let's move to the next slide. And we talked about not to do's, different projects but same rules always. And the development stage, the most time consuming stage of the process. Yeah, so after that game design project, the artist will start designing the visuals of the game. Here we have some examples for visuals from My Minimart by Supersonic Studios Ltd and Count Master Scroll Runner 3D by Freeplay LLC. You can get an idea about how the look of the prototype should be. And yeah, this is the, as we said, this is the stage that where your game designers, artists, start creating the arts. At this stage, you should design attractive visuals for your prototypes. Try to design all the arts in a very short time. And to speed up in that process, you can search through the asset store to see if there are any ready-to-use assets that have been already designed. So you can just pay and get those assets, which would gain you so much time. If not, you or your artist colleagues or a freelancer have to design the arts that you need from scratch. But after that, always keep your assets in an archive in case you need the exact same arts for further projects. And I recommend you to have your own style on your prototypes, just like a signature. What do I mean by that is, especially for arts, it is better to have an art style which reflects your studio. So design your models and UI in your own art style. So whenever we look at any prototype of any prototype of yours, we should understand that it's made by you, your studio, which means that could be a big plus for your studio prestige. And once you have the idea and the GDD prepared and start working on project, and once the visuals also are ready, our worker bees developers start working on the project. So this is the stage that our prototype is being built. This is the stage which consumes the biggest amount of time. So being fast and practical is really important at this stage. As long as this process takes, you start losing your motivation on the project, which means the longer time is needed to complete the prototype. So you should try your best to develop the prototype faster. So how can you develop the prototype faster? What can you do to develop it faster? Is first of all, start with creating a framework template for yourself to start your new projects. That way, you wouldn't have to code the basic stuff which you code for every single one of your projects. You can also create an asset archive of your own mechanics so that you wouldn't code the mechanics that you have already coded for your previous projects again, like UI related mechanics, or like stuff like character controller. Let's say you are developing a runner game and you have already developed a runner game before. Most of the mechanics would be almost the same, so you can use your old codes with slight updates for your new projects. That way you would gain so much time. Also, don't hesitate to use assets for your projects, as there are really great tools that have already been developed and is on sale on Asset Store. You can simply buy and use them to gain so much more time. In my country, there's an old saying that says there's no need to rediscover America. And this means that if something is already implemented, you don't need to wait so much time to implement that again. So you don't need to hesitate using assets to create an original product just to save some more time with your project, as long as you give credit or you pay to the creator of the asset. And one of the most important things for development process is using the GitHub well. Let's say you are developing a prototype which has a mechanic very similar to a hit game. You can search through the GitHub for clones of that game if you don't know where to start with developing that mechanic. And once you find an open source project on GitHub which includes a very similar mechanic to your prototype, you can get the idea to where and how to start developing your game. So usage of GitHub and open source is also very important for getting faster with your projects. And yeah, one of the important and complicated things of this part is optimization, because you may get your game unplayable because of the FPS drops while you try to add attractive visuals to get more players. Instead, you can end up with losing more players. So you should use optimized models, optimized textures, optimized particles, and optimized shaders. And if you use the ones that are not optimized, you have to optimize them yourself. And when you use custom shaders, try to, and if you are not the one who is coding the shaders, try to get ones that are mobile optimized, because shaders are also one of the most effective things for optimization. And I can recommend some important assets too. And you can use .win for tweening purposes, like animating purposes actually, like UI elements. If you want to animate your UI elements, or if you want to animate your 3D objects, and any kind of tweening purposes, you can use .win, because it has very easy to use functions. But don't forget to kill the tween after you use it. And what do I mean by that is, if you use .win and try to learn it, you would understand me. And you can use obi products for depending on your needs for your physics purposes. And obi products are really they are really complicated, and they are really hard to understand. But once you understand how to use that, they're really useful for physics simulations. Like if you need a rope simulation, you can use obi rope or obi cloth or obi liquid, depending on your needs and what kind of physics simulation you need. And You can use Rayfire for mesh deformation kind of stuff. It's really cool. It has really cool functions. It gives you really good visual effects for mesh deformations, like destructing 3D objects, 3D models, or buildings. It's really cool, so you can check it out, and you can get these assets and use them in your project depending on your needs. Actually, yeah, most of these assets are already on top selling categories on asset store, but I recommend them anyway. And yeah, another heads up for not overthinking. Yeah, don't try to implement new mechanics and try to improve the prototype without even testing it yet. Don't overthink it. Yes, it should be a high quality prototype, but it is still a prototype. So you can add more details to it after it brings successful metrics from the test. But before even testing it, you don't even know if the mechanic is going to work or if the concept is going to work. So without even testing the mechanic or concepts, don't try to add more details, because if you keep getting stuck on the same project for a long time because you overthink and try to add more and more to the game, as I said, you would probably lose your motivation and efficiency to complete that project. And the other thing is, make yourself an archive of assets, your own framework, and try to complete your prototype as soon as possible. So this is a brief summary of the things that we have talked about. And finally, creatives and testing, the final stage before testing. Yeah, after all of the process, you complete the prototype and prepare the App Store listing page. Here, the final thing comes. You take your gameplay videos, preferably with Unity Recorder, with the resolutions that your publishing partner or the publisher that you are going to test the game with tells you in their guide. This process actually really depends so much on the publishing partner that you are going to work with or you are already working with. So basically, you do what your publishing partner tells you to do. So you should actually check out the guide that your publishing partner sends you and prepare the creatives and gameplay videos and screenshots, stuff like that, SDK integrations, stuff like that. You should do those processes depending on your publisher's guides. And after all of that, the tests start, and now the most exciting process starts. You wait for the results, and I wish you all best of luck with this process. And let's check the time. Yep, I think that's pretty much all I can say for now, as we have a very limited time, I guess. Yeah. But you can always contact me on LinkedIn or by email and ask your questions about hyper casual industry or technical stuff related to Unity engine. And good luck with your projects to you all. Thank you for listening to me, and take care.